So I wanted to bring this up last week while we were talking about Planet of the Apes. One of the scripts that was scrapped because there was a half gorilla, half human baby that they were like, that part of the whole thing was like, does hide the baby and like save for a new species or something. It's just like, I'm sorry, what?
That'd be cool.
Apes and humans having sex, yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, they let into it with the kisses and shit, you know?
Yeah, there was a lot of monkey making out last couple of weeks.
I just thought that was just kind of like it also sitting there, was like that idea got scrapped. I'm like, gee, I wonder why.
Well, I'm thinking like logistically, we're not talking about that.
No.
We're not going into how they.
So who's the mother?
You based it on like a Thanksgiving turkey, didn't you?
Good times.
Good times.
I mean, that's all I had to say.
I watched Them.
What, them?
Yeah.
Them.
1950s period. Like, it's Them. It's like a horror anthology series.
Is it new?
Yeah, relatively. The new season just came out. The first season's about a black family that moves to a very white neighborhood in the 1950s, and then they become like ground zero for a supernatural thing, as well as dealing with their racist neighbors that don't want them living there because they're black.
Sounds like a metaphor.
Interesting watch. The thing I really took away from it was a great soundtrack.
Cool.
Yeah, but hello, everyone.
Hey.
How's it going? Welcome back. Oh, crap. What was that movie called?
What?
The one that... If?
Yeah, the one. Oh, yeah. Why
Okay.
we're doing this?
Welcome back to TJ's Mixtape. I'm Tommy. That's Jacob. We are a movie review podcast where we talk about movies, kind of the history of them, how they're made, who made them, kind of the themes and everything, and then give it a rating. Pretty arbitrary, but we just like to kind of end it on a note of how we felt about it.
Fucking sucks, man.
Sometimes it does go that way.
Twist dick. Give him the good old dick twist. Anywho.
Yeah, that's a great video.
I found it and have it saved now.
Good.
Yeah.
I just found the old fashioned video that I haven't seen in forever. So you're gonna add 3 ounces of bourbon. That one.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, I haven't seen this in forever. If you know, you know. So it's called If, right?
The movie.
Yes.
Coming out.
New movie coming out called If.
Directed, I want to say, John Krasinski.
And Ryan Reynolds.
Starring Ryan Reynolds.
Mm-hmm. But it is their imaginary friend movie, so we thought it'd be kind of fun, kind of like we did with Planet of the Apes.
Oh, also Steve Carell's in it. Steve Carell's the voice of the big purple.
Oh, okay. We thought in light of that, we would do some older movies that also tie into imaginary friends. So we thought of a couple.
Imaginary friend blog.
It's
bonkers.
Yeah, that I also like that we picked 2 pretty obscure ones, in my opinion.
Well, what other imaginary movie?
I don't know. I don't feel like we sat there that long. Whatever. It is what it is. We're here.
I feel like the ones that we're doing are probably the most well-known out of movies about imaginary friends.
I also think that they're the ones that don't automatically go into like a horror genre. Yeah,
because there is actually a horror one that recently came out called Imaginary.
Yeah, that's also the reason I got tripped up. Is because I know that came out.
Yeah,
and I'm getting them jumbled. But yeah, so this is. I would even make the argument that this one is a horror movie under the guise of a comedy because it's scary. some stuff in here that's just like, I'm like, this would not be okay outside of the world that is this movie. So, anyways, sorry.
It's more of like a psychological thriller.
Bearing the lead, we are doing 1991's Drop Dead Fred.
Yeah.
Which has a kind of cult
Has a
following.
cult following now.
And if you don't know, basically, which I have seen this since one time before this.
I watched it a handful of times when I was a kid.
A woman's life falling apart brings forth her destructive imaginary friend from her childhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a message of mental health.
Dude, like, really is actually.
It was kind of surprising.
I was like, oh wow, it was actually really weird. Like for this movie to turn into having a weird amount of depth. And then take it all away again.
I 3 times out loud went, who is this for? Like, who is this? This movie was made for blank, and I don't know who the demographic is supposed to be. I'm not.
Like, is this for kids? Like, is it for?
And there's a second you're like, okay, maybe this is for kids, and then he says something wild, and you're like, okay, maybe not for kids.
It's like they were like making a thing for kids, but adults can enjoy it too.
Yeah, no, but
then like the adult humor is also like not even like a. It's like it's like a teenager's. It's like, you know when like you're a teenager and you start like, oh, I'm learning curse words and like creative ways to use it type thing,
and you just don't know how to really do it yet.
Yeah,
actually,
like it's juvenile. This movie is just, in a lot of sense, very juvenile with a weird amount of depth in it. But okay, we're like getting into like
yes,
yeah,
but just the thought on that too is like the humor for adults. It's usually kind of hidden in between and kind of nuanced. It's not
read between the lines type thing.
It's not there. This is very just like
cobwebs.
Yeah. I just thought it was like that was one of the moments I was like,
hallelujah. She's not wearing any panties. 2 times he looks at women's skirts in this movie.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be more, to be honest.
Fair.
Yeah. So we're doing Drop Dead Fred. So like you said, released initially in the United States on May 24th, and then following up in the UK October 11th of 1991.
And yeah, that's the UK release mainly because of the male co-star in it. We'll get into it. UK comedian. Really quick, I guess for 91, I don't think we've ever done a 1991 movie.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
looking at the list, I was like, nothing really popped up.
I got 17.
I like 20 to 25. This was the year, literally. I was like, I know I've seen that movie when I was a kid, but I could not tell you anything that I don't remember it.
Yeah.
You know? A lot of movies. There was a lot of movies on the list like that. So like 20 to 25. But yeah, let's just get into written, directed, how this movie came about type shit. Because what's really interesting is originally Tim Burton and Robin Williams were offered to direct and star in this movie, respectively.
Fred had some serious Robin Williams vibes.
Yes. They kind of, Rick Mayall and Robin Williams kind of opposite, across the pond type stuff, but like cut from the same cloth type of style of comedy, I
feel like his comedy is very vulgar. I didn't watch
Robin's.
No, I know I know Robin's.
Yeah.
He was sweating and screaming.
So anyway, this was directed by I looked up how to pronounce this. Let's see if I remember. Ada de Jong. Yeah, Ada de Jong. He's a Dutch film director, filmmaker. Really, nothing like most of his stuff is Dutch. So like his biggest one is in English is called the Rotterdam bombing, which is a bombing that happened in Rotterdam post World War II. That was a very big event. Mm-hmm. And yeah,
I wrote down two that sounded interesting.
Deadly Virtues,
and Heartstrings. I was like, okay,
yeah. Very interesting. Very, very little to know. He did. Ida did. Him and the producer Paul Webster were rewriting the screenplay dirt through production as well. So it's interesting. Like we're going to go into the writers next, and Ada is not credited for it, and yeah, it's a very little amount of history about this movie I could find. I feel probably the same for you.
Yeah,
but the little that we found makes it just also very interesting. It's like very weird because like the writers. So we have credited by story is Elizabeth Livingston. And this is her only credit.
Yeah, I didn't find anything else.
Nothing. She doesn't have a Wikipedia. That's it. IMDb, 1 credit. Drop Dead Fred. And then we have our screenplay writers, Carlos Davis, who is like a playwright and novelist. Most recognized for this movie called Rascal and Robbers. It's like Misadventures of Tom Sawyer.
Yeah,
and it's like one of Anthony Michael Hall's first earliest roles. And then our other writer is Anthony Fingleton, who's a fucking professional swimmer.
Yeah, an Australian Olympic swimmer.
Well, he was offered to go into the Olympics, but he didn't go. Then he went to Harvard here in America and swam for the Harvard swim team, and then stayed in America and became a producer and screenwriter. He also wrote with Carlos Davis the Hurricane Heist.
Yeah.
And then also. He's credited as like a writer, probably just because it's biographical. But there's a movie about him being a fucking swimmer called Swimming Upstream. So like, who the fuck are these people that wrote this movie?
Yeah, how'd they get? What was their in? Who'd they know?
Yeah, it's like
because even then too, it's like the director being Dutch. And then Carlos being American, and then Tony being Australian too. If it was kind of like one of them was Dutch, maybe they just knew each other from that part of the Dutch industry.
Yeah.
But you have people from so many different parts of the world. It's very bizarre.
It's
very random.
And then the product that came out of it,
it kind of fits the bill.
So I was so weirdly flabbergasted by just how this movie plays out as well. Like, I remember as a kid really enjoying it, but now as an adult, like, I don't know how I don't know if I could say I enjoyed it, but it would.
No, let's get into our starring then.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's all I had to say about them. So yeah, our lead. Ooh, press something. Oh, that's weird. Okay. Phoebe Cates, who plays Elizabeth, who we talked about in episode 63, and she's in Gremlins. The infamous scene from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which I still think is very interesting because she did that. I thought this was interesting because of just the way this industry has worked in the past. I think it's obviously different now, but she did that really racy scene, and then she kind of went back and still did the girl next door type. And I just feel like that's always a weird way to go, because a lot of time once you do that, and at this era too, once you do that, it's kind of hard to flip the gauge.
But I think the reason with that was because of the way that it was presented in Fast Times.
Is the fact that it was a fantasy, not something.
That wasn't the character she was portraying. That wasn't her character.
That's a good point. Okay, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
It's his fantasy.
She was willing to show her chest.
Yeah.
For the joke of the fantasy. So so it's a racy scene in what that was, but it's not her character.
That's fair. Because I was thinking like Gremlins and this and everything. She is this very the girl next door type.
Yeah.
The very would live in your neighborhood thing. So I just thought it was like, that's so weird, because usually it doesn't usually go that way. But I didn't think about that. That's a good point. That it wasn't her character that was doing that. It was what he wanted her character to do.
That's what Judge was doing.
You fucking Judge. Yeah.
And then we got our male lead, her imaginary friend, played by Rick Mayall, who really, I'm just going to, I didn't really write down anything that he's been in, as none of it really, because it's all, UK television more than anything.
He's a comedian.
Yeah, he's actually kind of regarded as one of the beginning, first of the alternative comedians of the 80s in the UK. Like he's like him and his friend Aid. They kind of like did a bunch of like they created a groundwork for a new style of comedy, which is then evolved into the weird cringe comedy that that we started to enjoy. You know, they're like the evolution from like Monty Python is kind of a good way to put it.
Yeah, I was in a show called The Young Ones, which I actually kind of want to check out.
Yeah.
And comedy specials called Bottom Live. Yeah, so a comedian.
But I mean, again, like, but probably very much more popular in the UK, which is why there was an entire separate like UK release for this movie, because there was probably a bunch of people like that wanted to see Rick Mayall. I wonder how they responded to it, like Rick Mayall fans seeing this movie.
I mean, if you're a fan, I don't know. I mean, I don't know his comedy.
But is it a departure from what he was doing?
Yeah, that's the thing. You need to know his comedy, like watch his comedy.
I feel like this is definitely like a bit of his comedy, but like the container of this film is weird for it. Like he needs to be, rude and vulgar and whatnot for the character. But I don't know. It's just like that whole scene where they're in with the other imaginary friends feels like that almost feels like a different movie.
Those are some of the moments I was kind of checking out, that like that right there, that moment I was like, this is like, I don't know. And then maybe it's just that juvenile thing. Cause even those, the I'm going to be sick, fake throwing up thing. I wanted to throw him at the goddamn window. I was like, drop dead, Fred. Feel bad about that. He did pass away in 2014. The character. Like I didn't care for that. But I don't know. I'm trying to think too, because it's like Lewis Black, right? Lewis Black is a very loud, very political, in your face kind of comedian. And he took that and it works really well and like Accepted, where he plays the dean. Yeah. And he's basically, because it works because he's talking to these college kids about how much bullshit college is, how much bullshit college is, how much bullshit the government is, how life isn't gonna fucking give you fucking crack. And he's doing one of his bits, but it works for the container. So it's one of those, like, that's really just the only way I think we'd really know is to watch maybe some of his more popular bits and see. Which we probably should have done now that I'm thinking about it, but I didn't really think of it. I didn't really have the time. Hindsight's 2020. I didn't really think about watching it because I just didn't really. But I just think like I have knowledge of what type of humor, like alternative comedy, was coming in through the 80s. So if it's like anything like that, then I'm very, very aware of what kind of humor he's doing. Like, so I can't think of any examples off the top of my head. So fuck me. Robin Williams? No,
Robin Williams is American. So
but you're saying British, specifically UK. Okay. Yeah.
So honestly, I just have like a quick list of shout outs because this movie is really like Phoebe Cates and Rick Mayall show. And then how fucking Fred just ruins everything. Well, Fred ruined. Jesus Christ. This woman needs to be put into a goddamn mental institution. But then everybody, actually, no, I'm sorry. Maybe this entire movie is in a mental institution.
No.
Sorry. You're not even gonna humor that.
Marsha Manson, who plays Polly.
Mason.
What did I say?
Manson. Marsha Mason.
If I haven't seen it, it's new to me.
Plays her mother.
Plays her mother. Yes. I recognize the name in her, but I couldn't think of from what. Even looking at her list,
she looks a lot like the woman in Edward Scissorhands that is like the beautician that's really sexual towards Edward, but she's not. They just look very similar.
She reminded me a lot of Lisa Vanderpump.
Oh,
actually. And I don't know if it was the vibe and the hair. I don't know. She just had this air about her that really reminded me of Lisa Vanderpump.
But also this mother is also fucking bonkers.
Yeah, pretty much everyone. Even her next door neighbor boyfriend. I was like, what is wrong with this guy?
We got a lot. There's weirdly a lot to unpack in this fucking movie.
But yeah, so she, Marcia plays mom. We have Tim Matheson, who plays Charles, who I didn't know that is the original voice of Johnny fucking Quest.
Oh, I didn't know that as well.
Yeah, if you go down there,
wow,
he's Johnny Quest.
Damn.
For the youngins out there, Johnny Quest is a very old Hannah. Is it Hannah?
Yeah.
Yeah. TV show about a kid named Johnny Quest. It's, Venture Brothers. There you go. It's before that. It's the prequel.
I mean,
Johnny Quest is in it.
Yeah. I was gonna say Venture Brothers makes it like it's like yeah. Then we got
That's where it came from.
We got Carrie Fisher,
who, in my opinion, was actually one of the funniest things in this entire movie. Her little one-liners and shit were killing me.
That's fair. Her character also just didn't fit. I don't get it.
But she just said it was just her her timing and everything too. Well, it's he's an animal. Oh, he's gonna go all night. No, he shits in the corner and likes to eat with his paws. Yes, he's gonna go all night. I just liked her kind of fuck you kind of vibe.
It's really weird. Is I feel like Carrie Fisher gets pigeonholed as Princess Leia, obviously because but everything other than Princess Leia that she has done has been generally comedy, and her comedic timing is perfect.
Yeah.
She's the wife in the Burbs, right?
Yeah, she is. I forgot about that.
She's also a love interest for Tom Hanks in The Man with One Red Shoe.
Blues Brothers.
Yeah. She's
just trying to kill him, and it just exceedingly gets more and more crazy and violent.
Carrie Fisher is a comedic actress, and a lot of people don't fucking realize that, I feel. Anywho, I got then Ron. I wrote this down really wrong, really bad. Eldard? What did you write his name down?
No, for who?
He's the
Mickey.
Yeah.
Ron Eldard.
Eldard.
Yeah, it's ELDRD.
I'll show you what I wrote later. See if you can read that. Wow. Yeah, he's he was the boy up the street, boy next door that grew up.
Yeah, the boy next door, girl next door.
Who then, turns into also his just immediate infatuation with her is just so. Oh, anywho.
Hey, wouldn't that imply that he's always had a thing for her?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. And then I have lastly written down Ashley Peldon, who played young Lizzie Elizabeth, because she went on to become a really, really big voice actress. She's done a lot of voice work.
Oh, okay. Well, it was something weird. I was like, she kind of looks familiar to me. I don't know.
The young Lizzie?
Yeah.
Same. And I went through her IMDb trying to figure out what the hell it was, and I can't.
I mean, we could have just seen her on a panel or something.
There's another young child star that she looks almost identical to, and I can't pinpoint it. It's the big hair. Yeah? You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that what you're thinking too? It's
I think so,
that face with the big hair. It's like there's another little girl. So there's a weird sentence I'm going to stop saying.
Okay, great. All right. So that's pretty much everybody that's in this movie. So we'll do reviews real quick and scores and stuff, and then we'll get into talking about it.
Yeah.
So go ahead and give us our numbers while I pull that up.
Should I edit that out? I'm joking. All right. So these scores are all over the place. I'm really curious about what you got for the Metacritic. Especially what the research I did. There's been reviews from the last couple of years that are
in hindsight kind of thing.
Yeah. So on IMDb, this movie's got a 5.9, which blew my fucking mind that it was that high. Mm-hmm. And then on Rotten Tomatoes, it has an 11% tomato meter, and then a 77 audience score.
Yeah.
I can see you get in weird cult movies like this.
Yeah,
as well.
it's the meter starts fluctuating really crazy in these kind of situations that we've noticed,
Yeah.
Because I don't think people really, I mean, they do, maybe they don't. I don't think people understand the power that nostalgia has.
Oh, I mean,
it's kind of insane.
Some do, some don't.
Yeah.
Your nostalgia glasses,
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
It was getting you to realize
I'm
that
not. Don't.
Batman Forever.
Stop. Stop bringing it up. Okay?
I'm never gonna stop bringing it up.
Find some new.
It's one of my favorite stories.
Find some new material. Okay.
All right.
All right. So Metacritic
Batman
it has a
Forever.
25 Metascore, which comes out to generally unfavorable. Haven't done a low
25.
25. 1 positive, 6 mixed, and 12 negative.
Man, I'm really curious on this positive.
So the 1 positive, 70 out of 100 by Jay Boyar at the Orlando Sentinel. I had fun watching Drop Dead Fred, but I want to take special care not to raise expectations unrealistically by overpraising it. The movie is no comic masterpiece, but it is consistently amusing in a way that sometimes reminded me of a kiddie picture and at other times of a more sophisticated comedy.
That's pretty poignant.
Yeah, which is also to give it a 70.
I mean, that's just that's his personal feelings for it. But what he wrote, what he said is very. I agree with that actually in a lot of ways. It's because this movie is like hard to put into one box,
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool.
What else you got?
Oh no, this article just bummer. That's why I didn't read it. It tricks you. It's like you start reading it and then you have to
Pay.
Yeah, I was like, I wanted to read more of that, and I was like, why didn't I read more of that? For the mix, I picked Michael Wilmington at the Los Angeles Times, who gave it a 50 out of 100. Drop Dead Fred is an erratic stab at making madness sensible, a slapstick nightmare that goes too sane, that tries too hard to be both good and rotten.
Okay. Yeah.
And I kind of felt that one because there were moments where I felt like it was really trying really hard.
In a direction.
They really went for it, and you're like, you kind of didn't nail it.
Oh shit! I just remembered Bridget Fonda's in this.
Who?
She's the.
Oh yeah, she's
Annabelle.
Yeah, yeah, for
Annalise,
like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Philadelphia. Let's get here. Oh, I picked this. Gary Thompson, Philadelphia Daily News. I gave it a 38 out of 100. It's rare that a movie so cleverly conceived is so poorly executed.
I like
liked
that
one.
I like that.
I was like, that's short, simple, to the point. What is the absolute?
Because like as we get into this, like a thing that I'm actually now kind of thinking words to say it is, and I want to say this now before I forget it, is one of the biggest problems with this movie are the characters' goals, like what they want from this, like what and like the mother's goal towards Elizabeth.
Well,
Elizabeth's goal in general of trying to get back with her boyfriend.
That's the mom's goal too.
Huh?
That's the mom's goal too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. I thought the way you were wording it sounded like they had two different goals to me. Anyways, continue.
They kind of do, but don't, like, because the mother's version of that goal is very different.
Well, the end result is get back with Charles.
Yeah, the obsession over it is fucking bonkers from the mom. I'm gonna use the word bonkers a lot in this episode, just so everybody knows, because there's no other word I can use for this movie. And just like in general, all of the characters, like their goals, the way that they're presented is just very one-dimensional.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, then I was looking at the zeros.
The zeros?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was just curious.
Oh, so do you not have any more? I was getting the thing. I thought I was interjecting it. Okay, then we can go into our stuff. Fuck, this movie's fucking bonkers.
I enjoyed it, I will say.
I mean, yeah, that's what it's like. It wasn't unenjoyable, but it was definitely weird to rewatch. And I think since I was looking forward to watching this, as in a sense of like, I remember liking it so much, liking it a lot as a kid, but I was disappointed with the writing. I was disappointed with how shallow the characters truly were. Especially like how like the mother's just like, we got to get you back with Charles. It's like, your daughter's unhappy. And also like Elizabeth's whole thing, like, you walked in on him cheating on you, and you think the way that he's like gaslighting her, it's like the logic of these characters doesn't make sense.
It does in the sense that it's a mental issue
until you put that in there.
Yeah,
but you see, it's weird because this movie doesn't. You have to actively apply that thought into this movie, for it to make sense. As opposed to like it just. I feel like there's a missing ingredient, a missing thing to make it be like. That's why it should be like this movie, because the container of the movie feels like it should be more in reality, even like because like. Also, the beginning of this movie, how the hell is Elizabeth a functioning adult? She's at the very beginning.
She's not. That's why the mom wants her to be with Charles.
But there's clearly been an X amount of time that she's been functioning in this real world. And then all of a sudden, like in one afternoon, she's already lost her husband.
I think that we jump into the middle of her psychotic break.
Yeah.
It's already happened.
Yeah.
We don't see the actual... We see the tail end of the final breaking, but it's been breaking for a minute.
The ridiculousness of her, like, she leaves her purse in her car while she's on the phone. The car gets broken into, her purse is stolen, then the car gets stolen, is also, like, even the way that it's, like, that is set up and executed feels like a cartoon bit. It, you know, like a joke. And it's this weird, like, bounce back and forth of, like, trying to be in, like, this sense of true reality. And then this like extreme, like exaggerated reality of like of trauma.
Well, then you're picking up something. Well, number one, I'm going to say if they push that trauma thing too much, it would have been really preachy, which I don't think that's what this is doing. Mm-hmm. That's not what the point of this movie is. And number two, I'm not seeing this bounce back and forth reality thing that you're seeing. It's, to me, just very much lives in this kind of weird little world, Peter Pan-esque, Alice in Wonderland kind of thing, where, you know, it becomes, without being preachy, it does become that Fred, you know, as an imaginary friend would be, and is an extension of whoever's making it, you know.
Yeah.
That's what your imaginary friend is. And a lot of the time it is a child's way of coping with whether it be some kind of trauma, whether it be loneliness, sex, whatever it might be.
I just realized something.
What?
A lot of this movie, I like as I was watching it, is like the exaggerated like performance, exaggerated like world container. I kept thinking like this feels like this should like exist like more on a stage, like this in a way. It feels like a stage play made into a film.
Mm-hmm.
One of the fucking writers, the original screenplay writers, is a playwright. So a lot of things just clicked in my head right there. You don't really know stages, so
no. I was in the middle of. I was trying to. Remember.
Oh, I thought you were done with your thought.
No.
I apologize.
No, it's good. I was just trying to. I had an end thing for that. Whatever. It might come back. It may not. But yeah. So well, I guess goes into it. It's like it feels very in this reality to me, and also just the fact of the time frame of when this came out. I don't really get. I get it. I don't know. I'm in this weird point where it's like I get the hate and I don't get the hate, because late 80s, early 90s is just a really bonkers era for movies in general. And this is no better or worse than a couple other things I've seen. It's just it's a little odd.
I think with like maybe for this, I don't know, with the UK, a big like Rick Mayall is probably a really big name, you know, attached to this. So like expectations are at a different level. But I think it's the shallowness of the characters. And even in the container of it being like even
then though, in the late 80s, early 90s,
I don't
think
that's 100%. So
I don't think so.
I mean, well, that's an example then.
Well, no, I'm just trying to think of other movies that, like, you know, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, and
another movie that's got the same kind of reviews like this.
Well, that's what it's like. That's why I don't like. think it's just kind of par for the course of the era. Adventures in Babysitting. It's just it really just fits in this really just kind
Adventures
of.
in Babysitting has a little bit more like.
What I'm talking about is the wild concept. It's like bonkers. It's like this is a dream. This is a wake. You explain this movie. It's like, so I had this dream, and I woke up, and the babysitter who was really old, she was dead, and then my stoner brother became like a really good cook, and then I got a job at a fashion magazine. You know what I mean? Like these. That's why I was just kind of like.
I was really hoping you'd keep going with that. I was like, this sounds interesting. Let's see this movie.
It's just wild, you know. It's like all. It's just this era. That's why I just kind of like, yeah. I mean, it's just par for the course for this era of especially
of like mid
tier stuff, comedy, slapstick kind of.
Don't shoot, or stop or my mom will shoot or whatever.
Yeah, you know, Earth Women Are Easy.
Yeah, Kindergarten Cop.
Kindergarten
Cop's actually pretty fucking funny.
No, but it's wild though. So it's just in this bracket we're talking, and I'm like,
twins,
and it's kind of a big bracket because you're talking about late '80s and then even kind of even going into the mid '90s. Mm-hmm. Wild shit came out where it's like, oh yeah, that's a classic. It's like, yeah, okay, but right, and I think I've just gotten it from doing this. Write down in a sentence what this movie's about. Yeah, and you're sitting there going, what?
I mean, but the problem is, like, I feel like with a lot of those movies, the way that the characters are written, there's a little bit. They're not one dimensional. They're not three dimensional. There's a little bit more depth to them. As like literally, all you see the mother do is like try to change Lizzie into her and become and just get her back with what's his fucking name? And it's just like it's so fucking tunnel vision that it starts to feel unrealistic. And then you got the guy who the boy next door. I'm just gonna call him that.
I mean, that's just the wild card. I think that was a weird.
And then they're at the dinner and he's like, I've always wanted to be free like that, throwing spaghetti. He's like, what's wrong with you?
Well, no, but it's just I think this whole one dimension. They're all like that's what I'm saying though too. Is like, even Kindergarten Cop. I'm a cop. I need to get the bad guy. Oh no, children. That's his character.
Yeah, there's a little bit more to it than just that.
I just watched it. I disagree, which is fine. We can agree to disagree. But
it's like even Carrie Fisher, her friend. Your friend just sunk your house, and you're not having a complete mental breakdown at your friend.
She did. Well, she had a mental breakdown. She started beating up Fred in front of her bosses. That's what I'm saying. The whole thing is a mental thing. It's like it's this weird, almost mental awareness thing without like really pointing out. Because like that right there, that was her freaking out about the boat. Yeah. But didn't want to attack her friend. She was having because even then she walks back into the office like, is it hot in here? Like she's having a complete freak out. And that's just the way it manifested, you know? But I mean, I do want to say, though, that entire scene, Phoebe Cates at the restaurant, had me crying. Of Fred controlling her and her trying to ignore it. And, like, even the water.
That was great physical acting from Phoebe Cates.
That was real. And, like, the water, and she, like... it was just real. The scenes where Fred is interacting with Phoebe, but then we're supposed to be in the perception of those that can't see Fred. Those scenes were actually really, really funny. Of him like getting up on their faces, and then I was also just kind of impressed. I was looking for someone to slip up, like him to yell and them kind of like wince, and I didn't really catch anything.
I wouldn't be surprised if like Ada de Jong really was really paid close attention to that.
Yeah,
because like in a sense of like making a film where people don't see this character. You gotta find the right cuts and edits where
it's the big point of the movie. You gotta make sure to make it so that it doesn't look like they suddenly
like in Frighteners.
Yeah,
when all the ghosts and the people are not responding to But I mean, but like that's the thing that just like even like with this movie being like it's an entire metaphor about overcoming trauma, and like even like it's like the best part and like. Of that is the dream sequence, which was weirdly that's like
towards the end.
Yeah,
that was weirdly a very sweet moment,
very cathartic.
Yeah, it kind of comes out of left field.
It's like her. It's literally like you realize that Fred has literally just been this vehicle to help her overcome and face her demons.
Yeah.
You know, like her reverting back to her childlike state, and you know, and realizing it's like facing that and using that coping mechanism to then overcome it for the future. Because once she's like, you know, once Fred is gone and like she actually finally, what's the husband's name? George? No. Charles. She finally like, you know, dumps the salad on his head and she's like driving off, you know, and she's told her mom like, fuck you, I'm doing my life, you know, and she gets with Mickey and then everything reverts to like, that's also, all right. Like,
what, Fred coming back?
Yeah. It weirdly like, what, like, if Fred was like a vehicle to help Elizabeth get over her trauma, what's happening to this little girl?
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, the child of divorce. But
well, it's like, I mean, like, what happened to Phoebe? Except for her mom was kind of a mega bitch. That was one of those moments too, where I was like, "Who's this movie for?" Yeah. Because that was like the one. Because then he started calling her Mega Beast, and then he switched it over. Well, he said Mega Bitch, and then he switched over to.
Well, and that's an interesting thing because, like, if for an American audience, it's like, oh my god, what is he calling her? For a UK audience, probably like, ha.
Well, I just was like, and then it was pointed out that, like, you know, he said Mega Bitch to her when Elizabeth was an adult.
Yeah.
And then called her Mega Beast when she was a little girl, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But then continued to call her Mega Beast again, even to adults, and I'm confused at. Was that just because it was the first time? It was the first time he's seen her in a while, so he's just like, ah, shit.
The Mega Bitch.
And then in the same scene, he looks under her skirt and cobwebs. You're like, again, who is this for? Oh, and I have to say, when his head gets squished in the fridge is actually absolutely horrifying.
It really is.
It's a horrifying. It's a cool mask, like that the prosthetic they made and everything, but it's pretty fucking horrifying. It reminded me of something.
Garbage Pail Kids?
Huh?
Garbage Pail Kids?
No, it reminded me of Spy Kids.
Spy Kids? Oh, okay. I think I have some music videos I need to show you.
Alan Cummings.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we were talking about Alan Cummings.
Yeah.
Camera.
But yeah, so yeah, that dream sequence, like her freeing her child self, embracing her child self. I mean, it's all very, very good, like visual metaphor of her finally like overcoming her trauma and becoming a complete human being. Because it's also kind of weird. It's like she's like the way that Elizabeth is shown through this, like even like wardrobe wise, she dresses like a little girl through this entire film.
Yeah, man, God, fucking late 80s, early 90s. But what were y'all wearing?
Not really like that, but
it was even like I said, like no.
I mean, that's what kids wore. That was a kid's outfit.
I was watching the extras too. There was some shit going on back then.
Oh yeah.
Woof. Mullet, cool. Ooh, it's been a permed mullet. It's curly. Little poodle.
Good times. Good times.
Yeah, like the last thing the dress she wears at the end. I was like, it's like something you wear ironically on Christmas Day.
I'm trying to think what else. I mean, I feel like we kind of. I don't know. Is there anything?
This is a movie that is very much a product of its time, but it even stands out for being a product of its time for just how bizarre it is.
Yeah.
And there's just certain things that I just don't really understand. Like, okay, like you brought up that whole scene when they're going to the therapist and the other imaginary friends are there.
Yeah.
Which implies, so there's this kind of this two thing kind of going on. There's this implication that there is actually this world of imaginary friends that are almost like these blue fairy guardians that come around and help children that are in need. Okay, cool. Got it. But then there's also this mental thing. So there is this idea. It's like they're going hand in hand. Your mental illness does create these other entities that pop around and help you out with your trauma. But it's just even stuff like that is like Fred very much has a color scheme. He's redheaded and wears green and yellow. That's his thing. Will his outfit change? Yes, but it's always green and yellow. That's his thing. Green and yellow, red shoes. Green and yellow, red shoes. Snot face. And then you meet these other imaginary friends, and I just thought that they really, that entire scene really stands out, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
because not only are it's like, all the imaginary friends have the same kind of humor. They have a puking contest, which you're like, that's only weird because so are all imaginary friends. It's this weird, almost like I'm putting too much into it, I know, but it's like putting this weird lore building into it, and it was just not interesting because
it's like an immediate thing is like what do kids find funny in the 90s? This is what child humor was. An imaginary friend is going to have the humor of a child,
and I think it's that kind of that review was kind of saying it kind of went too heavy-handed into that, and it just wasn't interesting. Even their designs weren't
mud
interesting.
Pies, fucking.
Also, let's be real,
dog shit all over the carpet.
From the perspective of the parents, Lizzie was a absolute nightmare of a child.
Yeah,
it was pretty brutal. It's like no wonder Dad left.
Yeah. He was probably
he had you and then your mom. Like he was
probably getting abused by the mother as well.
Yeah, you know? and then also I loved that. I really did. The emotional taking hostage of the imaginary friend. I thought was like cool move. Go mom.
Oh yeah. I guess like
she's straight up out. Like, do you realize how traumatizing that would be? For like depending on your age.
Oh yeah.
So you're gonna take her best friend, lock it in a cell, and then keep it. And then anytime she misbehaves, you're gonna show it to her and be like, "I'm going to destroy this and kill your friend anytime you misbehave." That's some really good.
That's some psychological
trauma.
That's
good. Yeah, that's a good one. That's like a cool move. Like, you know what I mean?
Have you heard of this thing called gaslighting?
Yeah, like
dude, it sounds so awesome. I'm gonna try it next time.
It fucking worked. It worked. What is that terrible phrase? Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Jesus.
It's like, I was just blown because again, it was like just nonchalant what she was doing. And it's like, again, it's a period of time, it's the kind of.
Well, and it's like
you wouldn't do that kind of shit.
The exaggerated form of this movie, it's like, it is where, I guess I just didn't really like the presentation, like in Rich, like as an adult, like looking at the presentation now, knowing that this is pretty much all one giant metaphor for trauma, which also fucking crazy for like how is this for kids now? Like
that's what it is. That's what I think really just I know it's gonna kind of come back around again. It's just it's really hard to gauge who this movie's for.
Yeah. Because like for it being a metaphor for trauma. We're kind of like putting that on there. Oh, well, no, actually,
I think we're putting that on there a little heavy-handed without confirmation.
I don't think we are, because in Wikipedia, it is like Ada de Jong said that during his rewrites, he experienced trauma from his stepbrother when he was younger, and he wanted to. Yeah, let me find it. Like
it's right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Written by director and producer Paul Webster throughout production for the rewrites. Took inspiration from being that as a child by his older half brother, stating the trauma of child abuse goes deep and its cause reach far in time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So the movie being a metaphor for trauma we are very much on point with that. Because that was Ada de Jong's, whole thing, like target for this. So, which then like with that knowledge as well, it's like it then starts like, the trauma that Elizabeth has endured is almost kind of like it's what we're looking for. It's like almost like talked around.
Well, yeah, you actually, which is kind of interesting, and it's maybe it could be limitations of what you could show at the time. You don't really get, at least my opinion, you don't really get a real concrete idea of what Elizabeth was dealing with.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is also kind of a thing too, because as a child, a lot of those memories can either be suppressed or, you just were so young you don't really remember them, but they still left their scars. So it's kind of like an interesting idea of like, was that on purpose? Because from what you see, the mother is passive aggressive, well, both passive aggressive and just aggressive, and rude, very emotionally abusive, in just things that. But even then, too, it's like parents slip up.
It's like her punishment of actions is over the top.
Yeah, when it's also like, parents slip up and they're human too, and they say and do things they may not mean, and sometimes it will just be in a moment, and in a moment of not excusing anything, but even something like that. So a parent, you get frustrated and you say something that you don't mean.
I'm not saying this on.
Okay. But you know what I mean? Like, like even though there's that scene where she says something like, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what, but sometimes I feel like I don't love you. Something she says something like that.
Yeah.
Is that a completely horrible and shitty thing to say to your child? Yes. Do you make mistakes and get frustrated and say things you don't mean necessarily in that moment you might mean, but you don't mean them in your hearts of hearts? Yes. But so it's kind of like shit like that. And you're just kind of like sitting there going like, what? But there had to be more if Fred's coming around.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like,
or she was just a demon child. But it all feels acting out and you never really get a full clear idea of what she was acting out from.
Exactly.
Which more often than not, there's a reason behind it.
Yes.
A kid just doesn't do that on their own accord. You know, they have to have something kind of fueling it.
Yeah.
So it is like, so
and I think that's where I kind of like, I get that this is a metaphor for trauma and everything and overcoming it, but it's the loose sense of what this trauma is and what Elizabeth is actually attempting to overcome. It gets lost, I
feel like it gets lost, but it gets found kind of suddenly.
What it is. It's like the trauma of what the trauma is or what it was gets lost, but her overcoming and the catharsis of overcoming of it is very real, is very there and very and cathartic as for our audience to see as well. You see does that make sense? Yeah. It's this fucking. I wasn't expecting this movie to be this. You know what I mean? Like, where the fuck did this movie come from?
Yeah, no, because I watched it once before, and I really didn't care for it. And I didn't like Fred. I really didn't.
Yeah.
And I still don't particularly care for him, but he had more moments.
Yeah.
You know,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
And it's like, and I think that's fine. It's the same. You know, some people don't like Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
It's like you may not hate Jim Carrey, but you hate Ace Ventura. Yeah, I get it. He's really fucking rude and annoying. Like,
do you have a breath mint? Perhaps some Banaka?
Yeah, it's like not only is he really obnoxious, but he's really fucking rude, you know, to people. So I get it, but it's the same thing with this, and it's, I don't know, I just had this different appreciation for it because of that. What that even review said, it's like there is this level. It's an interesting watch, especially as an adult. As a kid, I feel like a lot of it will go over your head, and it's just this zany guy wearing all green.
And I don't think it was like children today would really find this very funny, though. I don't know.
Probably not. No, I don't know. I don't have children, so I can't imagine. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of stuff that we watch that it just wouldn't.
Yeah, Rocco or Ren and Stimpy. Or Cat Dog.
I think Ren and Stimpy would maybe. The nihilistic nature of it might.
I feel like we're kind of like starting to kind of just go in circles again.
Like, what are we at?
We're at like 53, but I mean, there's no reason. I mean, if we're going in circle, I don't want to just, stay on.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it was an interesting watch.
I really do. I agree. It was a very interesting watch. It was interesting to kind of uncover this after years, because I like anybody who, if you're listening, if you're listening and you watched this as a kid and you haven't watched it since then, it's a completely different movie. Yeah,
it really is. It is very much. And it is kind of fun now that now that the gears are turning. It is kind of fun. Not fun's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. But it is kind of interesting to think of what is the trauma. Because Dad's gone.
I really don't want to go down that path.
No, I know. Yeah. No, but I mean, just as
in general, as an individual,
as you're watching it, because then, there's the whole like Fred is really out against the mom, and it is kind of interesting to be like, so this is a metaphor for dealing with your trauma, and the individual created as Fred, and it's kind of fun to sit there and. So what did happen? Yeah. There's this little mystery you're trying to figure out because they don't really ever tell you, and I really want to go back to Mickey for a second because that shit was just wild. That whole bit with him.
Which one?
Him.
Just him as a character. Yeah.
Didn't need to be there. You could have taken him out. Literally cut out. You didn't need to be there. You even the whole he helps her break out of the house. I'm like, you could have written anything to make that happen. That wasn't pivotal to
he just he was just happenstance climbing the tree to get to her window.
He's a lunatic. lunatic. He's
really
an
is.
absolute lunatic. And like,
It's like no wonder his wife is divorced.
yeah, no wonder she left your ass. You're either taking too much of your medication or not enough, bro. But yeah, I just thought I was, and that's what I think I got more of a kick out of it, was just sitting there as the why why is this happening, that just constantly was kind of popping up through the movie randomly. You know, why Mickey? Just why is he here? Why is Fred doing this? Why is she doing that? You know,
why does her friend live on a fucking barge or
yeah, it's not even a houseboat. It's like a old,
like a ferry.
It's almost like a steamboat.
Yeah.
With the yeah.
And then also that's when it started to sink. I was like, I was like, don't remember this being a fucking thing in the movie. That they really did bother me, just how much she just didn't get angry at Elizabeth about that.
It was very weird, especially because, you know, she's first predicted as this very
spiritual, free-minded
90s independent woman, you know, like business, you know,
Yeah.
she was that like archetype of that, you know, that time. And well, I mean, you know, even then she's speed walking through the park with her lit cigarette, which I loved.
No, not until I get the serotonin or whatever the fuck.
The
aerobic high. Like, there it is.
Yeah, it's like a cigarette after sex kind of thing. I really liked Carrie Fisher a lot.
Which, no, she performed the fuck out of that character, but that character was fucking weird.
Or, you know, she's beating up Fred. She's like, the one time I can get stooped by Murphy when his wife is out of town. And she goes, okay. And then like I thought she was great. But yeah, not a good friend, but a great friend, but not a good friend at the same time.
They're all in a mental institution. I'm just gonna say that.
Even then Nurse Ratched shows up.
Oh yeah,
That's a great line. You're gonna behave either conscious or unconscious. It makes no difference to me. You're like, Jesus Christ.
Oh, okay, let's start wrapping up. I don't even know, dude. I don't even know what kind of carrot to give this. Can I give it an imaginary carrot? Can we do that?
Well, you got to do what we always do, objectively as a movie. Just as a movie, okay, here, give it your personal. Start there. What would you give it? In your own personal collection, you have them all on you have the DVD on your shelf, and they're all go in a section of 1 to 5. Where are you putting that one?
With a radish. I don't know.
And the radish talks.
It's like really, like it's like somewhere between a 2 and a 2 and 5.
So that's kind of where I was going, just in the sense of it's
weird because I feel like for what it is, it's weirdly good for a metaphor for trauma, but not at the same time. I guess since we're having so much of a debate over like all of that, a 2 or 2.5 really just because there's no like solidifying, like, you know, we're not like, you know what, this is really good, boom. You know, and
it's like I don't want to speak ill, especially, but it's just especially if you're a big fan of what's his name,
Rick Mayall.
Yeah, Rick. It's one of those. It's kind of like that villain conversation we've had, like with Thade. Is that his name?
Thade
from Planet of the Apes.
Thade.
Is that
Thade?
It's like Fred is a really big point of this movie, considering it's the fucking name, and it doesn't feel like they nailed Fred. And it might have been direction, it might have been
the rewrites, honestly. I mean,
yeah, it could have been a lot of stuff.
I mean, like, I'm really curious what the original screenplay of this was. Like, what was the producer and Ada de Jong rewriting through the production? This movie just became, by the end of it, it was more just like Ada de Jong's.
Yeah, and that's also like, and Fred is such a caricature that it's one of those, you put Fred there and you start swapping it out with different people, you're going to get a very different one.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, you know, you put Robin Williams there, you have the Robin Williams version, even Tim Curry.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I just don't know if this Fred was the best rendition of the Fred.
Mm.
because even then that moment where they have that reconciliation and he's like, oh, I have to leave now, is really sweet. And,
I was just about to say, yeah.
and it's actually,
it's a very touching moment and a very like grounded moment for this character that we've seen be like, I'm gonna
and you're like, oh, that was really great. Like, and he's actually pretty well acted and like, very, you felt it. And then it ends with him coming back and you're like, well, that kind of feels like, granted, Lizzie can't see him anymore and everything, but that sacrifice, that feels like that trauma wasn't closed anymore.
Well, it's like, but it's almost like now it's like, the Toy Story thing. Now it's time to pass on and, it's to help this little girl, deal with her trauma, apparently
caused by the guy that you're trying to see. Well, okay. So I think for that point alone, 2.5, because it has caused a conversation.
Yeah, and they get really quick. Just kind of going back to like, even with like him coming back, like the way that it's presented in the film is like, oh, it's a fun, quirky thing. Like, oh, because these imaginary friends live in their own world, and now he's gonna be with this girl, and it's like it's presented in like silly old Fred is back.
Yeah.
Not really thinking about what the fuck the consequence, what this entire movie was actually saying. It almost feels like maybe a producer, maybe that was a studio thing forced in there for like a happy ending, or a fun, kid-like ending.
Open it up to a sequel.
Maybe, who knows?
Maybe. Yeah, I'd say a 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not very good. But again, it's the topic matter on what it just wasn't executed great. But the topic is an interesting way to go.
Very
about
ahead of its time, really.
Yeah, for mental health.
Yeah,
like
that's actually. So what's interesting is like in Wikipedia at the bottom, there is a couple of like reviews that's like mystical movie guy Carl Schroeder. The imaginary friend is cavortingly rude for a reason. He's served to push the girl child to do mischief for attention and as a cry for help. Now grown up, the woman has forgotten and is about to lose her soul. So events call for some kind of literal return of her demon to force the exposure of her pain. The psychic crisis is poignantly realistic. The creature who is visible only to the woman is like a poltergeist energy. Her repressed blah, 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 blah. All right, this is going somewhere. He wanted to call the movie's resolution startlingly beautiful. Another person said, a sophisticated and ahead of its time black comic exploration of anxiety and depression. And that was written by Alexander Alarman in the Telegraph in 2021. So, yeah.
Yeah. So
we hit it on the head.
2.5?
2.5.
I mean, and it's one of those... Okay, and then, like I like to say this to people, if you remember it from before, either a kid or a long time ago, watch it again as an adult, especially because we all have anxiety and depression now, and kind of look at it through that lens of what the topic they're talking about, because it is an interesting watch from that.
Yeah.
Especially her reverting to her childlike state and everything. It's just very bizarre. So I recommend it in the sense of rewatch. It's definitely worth a rewatch.
Yeah, it's if you haven't seen it,
don't worry. If you're 20 right now, you're probably not. Don't give a shit.
If you're 40 or almost 40.
Yeah, if you're 30 plus, then give it a retry. It was an interesting rewatch for sure.
Very odd. Yeah.
What are we doing next week?
Bogus.
Which I've never seen.
And I don't remember at all.
Cool. So it's another imaginary friend, and then not sure what we're doing after that.
Another European imaginary friend.
Yeah, this one is French.
Oh, god damn it.
And I can't remember his name, but I like him.
It's like Gerard Dupont or something like that.
I like him as an actor.
Yeah.
And the stuff I've seen. All right, cool. So follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You'll see all of our promos for what's coming up. On that promo is a link to our link tree. And on there, you can see all of where we post our stuff, which is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, video on YouTube, so on and so forth. Find the one you like, hit subscribe, follow. And throw us comments and ratings and all that. And share us with friends if you think they like us. Again, this is Tommy and Jacob's mixtape. I'm Tommy.
I'm Jacob. Why did you
I don't
say
know. I did that in a weird way.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. 3, 2, 1. Tommy and Jacob's mixtape.
Hey, why again? Fuck it. We're done.